there are 613 laws. I know most of us only know 10 commandments. In the New Testament, there are 1,100 laws. So it is easier for you to be in the Old Testament than in the New, in terms of laws. People think that the New Testament is a lawless terrain. I came to tell you that there are 1,100 do and do not in the New Testament. I just came out from the closet. So I challenge you to go and search and see whether I'm saying the truth. You don't understand that the God of the Bible doesn't change. You know, I told you, I started with the parable that the father sent the elder son, go and walk. The guy said no, but he went. And as far as the father was concerned, it was that his will being done that was his objective. Just like in my life and in your life, if you look at us, there are things we did in the past that did not glorify God. But that's not God's emphasis. God's emphasis is, the thing I say you should do, did you do it? That's God's emphasis. You understand what I'm talking about? There are many failings you will discover. You tried this, it didn't work. You tried that, so many things you are ashamed of. But that is not the subject matter. The subject matter is about the will of God, whether it is fulfilled. Exactly? All right. And there's something I need to tell you quickly. Forget about asking God for what his purpose for your life is, what his will for your life is, if you have not yet learned how to follow the general will of God. The general will of God is what is contained in the Bible. All right? So the first thing you are supposed to do is to begin to acquit yourself and to align yourself with God's general will. When you become an obedient Christian, and obedience becomes part of your operating system, then you can now seek to find out what is God's specific mind for me. Because Jesus modeled obedience as the life of a man that is powered by the Spirit of God. Adam modeled rebellion. And in fact, from the eyes of the kingdom of heaven, what humankind is capable of doing flawlessly is to rebel. So, but Jesus came and showed us a different example. And for Jesus, obedience was the operating system. And in the life of Jesus, there was one particular subject of obedience that was the ultimate subject of obedience. And he had to beg God to supply him with the strength to be able to accomplish that obedience. And that was the cross. If you study a little bit about crucifixion, you find out that crucifixion, the average crucifixion, death by crucifixion takes a minimum of 2 days and a maximum of 7 days. So the person is going to be on the cross for like 7 days. I'm telling you as a man that has researched the subject. 2 to what? To 7 days. And most of your pictures of Jesus being crucified, most of them are decent because he's wearing something like a napkin. The real situation was that he was naked, stark naked. No kind of humiliation equals death by crucifixion. Meanwhile, there were people that were crucified before Jesus, and when they were on the cross, they didn't cry. What made Jesus' crucifixion different from other crucifixions was the spiritual implication of what was happening, the transaction that was taking place. Are you with me? Because on that cross, Jesus was made sin. And because God has a nature such that he cannot behold iniquity, in the history of God, something happened. The Father had to turn his face away from the Son. Meanwhile, the security of the Son was tied to the witness of the Father. And it was going to be a mega risk for Jesus to go into the grave without the support of the Father. Because the grave, or hell where he was going, was a place of test. Hell where he was going was a place that was godless. That's the third factor. It was a place of test. It was a place that was godless. There was no God there. I forgot the third point. That was where he was going. Because of you and me. And whether or not he healed the sick, whether or not he cleansed the lepers, raised the dead, was not the issue. The issue for him was that cross. To satisfy the claims of divine justice so that God will have a legal ground to bring man into glory. Because the habitat that was created for mortal men is glory. And it happens to be that the sin factor is what made humankind to fall short of the glory of God. I don't have time to press on that matter of glory. Because I hope to do a seminar, a 3-day seminar, and the subject will be salvation. We have to sit down and find out what is salvation. I know you think you know until the seminar. Now, at the end of a man's life, the question is, did you do what God said you should do? Because before you were formed in the womb, God's plan concerning your life was already articulated. And the only reason why you were released into time, released from your mother's womb, and you did not die as a stillbirth, was because that agenda of God was what you came here to accomplish. And in the eyes of God, are you with me? Whether you made mistakes along the way is not the matter. In the eyes of God, at the end of the day, was his will done. So the first thing that we are going to consider, which is in the line of God's will, which is critical, because if we are talking about kingdom, weightier matters of the kingdom, the first issue we need to bring to the surface is the will of God.